The arena was settling into a familiar, comfortable rhythm. We have all felt that specific mid-show lull, where the raw excitement of the opening pyrotechnics has faded, and the main event still feels just a little too far away. The commentary team was relaxed, their voices steady as they discussed championship scenarios that felt predictable, almost safe. In the center of the ring, the current champion stood tall, microphone in hand, exuding a level of confidence that, in retrospect, was dangerously close to arrogance. They truly believed they had cleared the board, that no legitimate threats remained in their kingdom. It is a common mistake at the very top of the mountain. You often forget just how slippery that slope really is when you are looking down at everyone else. The fans were engaged but comfortable, sitting back in their seats, expecting the standard commercial break or perhaps a predictable interruption by a known, thoroughly scouted rival. It was arguably the calmest moment of the entire night. A stillness that, looking back with what we know now, feels incredibly eerie. We really should have known better. We should have remembered that silence this heavy in the volatile world of WWE is rarely peaceful. It is usually a held breath before a scream. The stage was perfectly set for disruption, lulling everyone, from the casual viewer at home to the producers backstage, into a false sense of security. It was a masterclass in misdirection, making us believe we knew exactly what tomorrow would bring, right before everything we understood about the current landscape was about to be violently dismantled. The air in the arena was stale with predictability, waiting for a fresh wind to tear through it. And then it happened. It did not arrive with a gradual build or a gentle hint, but with the violent suddenness of a lightning strike hitting quiet water. The lights didn't just go out. They were extinguished, plunging the arena into a darkness so complete it felt physically heavy on the shoulders. That millisecond of total confusion is always the sweetest part of professional wrestling. It is the precise moment where standard reality suspends entirely and absolutely anything becomes possible. Before the iconic music even hit, before the first terrifying blast of pyro lit up the dark void, a ripple of realization moved through the tens of thousands in attendance. Someone knew. Deeply, instinctually. Someone always knows. That whisper grew instantly into a rumble before a single image appeared on the Titantron. The routine was shattered in an instant, replaced by an electric current of pure, untethered anticipation that raised goosebumps on arms all the way to the cheap seats. We were not just watching a show anymore. We were suddenly witnessing a seismic shift, completely unaware of just how hard the aftershocks were about to hit us. When the first chord of her new, darker theme thrashed through the speakers, it wasn't just sound, it was a physical force. The returning silhouette stood at the top of the ramp, framed by aggressive red light and thick, choking smoke. She didn't move initially. She just let the moment breathe, letting the realization wash over the champion in the ring. It was masterfully theatrical, a perfectly composed painting of imminent danger. She didn't need to run to the ring. Her mere presence had already closed the distance. The inevitable had arrived, wearing a new face of absolute, terrifying confidence. The reaction wasn't just a cheer. It was a visceral, guttural roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. If you listened closely beneath the primary noise, you could hear the distinct sound of genuine shock, thousands of people simultaneously gasping for air before letting it out in a chaotic wall of sound. Cameras caught faces in the front row that weren't just happy. They were stunned, jaws literally dropped, eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and adrenaline. This is the drug that keeps wrestling fans coming back forever. That fleeting feeling that you are right at the epicenter of the most important thing in the world at that exact second. Social media immediately became a blur of capitalized letters and exclamation points, a digital mirror of the chaos inside the arena. But inside that building, time felt like it slowed down. We watched her walk down the ramp with a deliberate, predatory pace that was completely alien to the character we used to know. She used to run to the fans, eager for their approval. Now she walked right through them, seemingly indifferent to their adoration. It was chilling. It communicated without words that the relationship had changed. She wasn't here for us anymore. She was here for herself, and we were just lucky enough to be allowed to watch.
The energy shifted from a welcoming party to observing a dangerous predator entering a new territory. The joy of the return quickly morphed into an uneasy curiosity about what this new version of her was truly capable of doing to the roster we had grown accustomed to.
While the arena was basking in the euphoria of the surprise, one can only imagine the frantic energy that must have been consuming the backstage area. A return of this magnitude isn't just a segment, it's a complete rewriting of the script for months to come. Picture the other superstars huddled around monitors in the locker room, watching their carefully laid plans for title shots and storylines evaporate in real time. The hierarchy of SmackDown didn't just get a new name added to the list. The entire list was burned and needed re-ranking immediately. For the younger talent who had risen during her absence, this was the first real test of their new positions. It's easy to be a big fish when the shark is away on vacation. Now, the shark was back in the tank, and she looked hungrier than ever before. You could see the realization on the face of the champion in the ring, the blood draining away, the bravado vanishing. They weren't just facing a returning veteran, they were facing a living legend who had clearly spent her time away sharpening her weapons. The producers likely scrambled, screaming into headsets to cut times, to extend segments, to capture every possible angle of this historic walk. The chaos we felt as fans was certainly magnified tenfold for the people responsible for keeping the show on the rails. The carefully crafted ecosystem of the women's division had just been introduced to an apex predator, and every single person backstage knew that starting tomorrow, nobody's spot was safe. What was most striking wasn't just that she was back, but how she was back. The colorful gear was gone, replaced by muted utilitarian tones that signaled business over showmanship. The smile that used to light up arenas was nowhere to be found, replaced by a cold, analytical stare that seemed to look right through her opposition. It wasn't the petulant anger of a standard villain. It was something far more unsettling. It was the cold detachment of someone who no longer cared about being liked, only about being effective. This wasn't just a costume change, it felt like a fundamental rewiring of her character's DNA. We often see superstars return with a fresh coat of paint, but this felt like a complete teardown and rebuild. She moved with an economy of motion we hadn't seen before. No wasted energy on taunting, no playing to the hard camera for applause. Every step had a lethal purpose. It raised so many tantalizing questions. What happened during her time away to harden her like this? What betrayals did she suffer, real or imagined, that turned that previous warmth into this icy resolve? The mystery of her transformation immediately became more compelling than any match she could possibly have. We were no longer just watching an athlete. We were now deeply invested in unraveling the psychology of a damaged, dangerous character. She had evolved from a superhero into a beautifully complex anti-hero, and we couldn't look away. When she finally took the microphone, the most powerful thing she did was wait. In an era where everyone talks fast to fit into tight TV segments, she let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. She held the audience in the palm of her hand, forcing them to quiet down to hear her, rather than raising her voice over them. It was a massive power move. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower, devoid of the breathless excitement that used to define her promos. Every word was measured, surgical, and hit with the impact of a finishing maneuver. She didn't scream catchphrases. She delivered undeniable facts that cut deep into the current roster. She spoke of her past accomplishments not with pride, but as mere stepping stones to the violence she intended to unleash now. The scariest part was the calmness. It's easy to dismiss someone who is yelling and out of control. But someone this composed, this intensely focused, that is genuinely terrifying. She didn't just threaten the locker room, she deconstructed them verbally before she even threw a single punch. By the time she dropped the microphone, it sounded louder than her entrance music. She hadn't just returned to take part, she had returned to take over, and her first act as dictator was absolute silence. The immediate consequence of a return this volatile is the drawing of battle lines. In every wrestling locker room, there are those who embrace chaos because it offers an opportunity to climb, and those who fear it because they have everything to lose. We began to see the subtle shifts almost immediately in backstage segments. Alliances that seemed unbreakable suddenly showed cracks of doubt. Was it better to align with this new, unstoppable force, or to band together and try to repel her before she gained too much momentum? You could see the younger talent watching her with a mix of reverence and sheer terror. She represents the standard they grew up watching, but now that standard is standing in front of them, threatening to take their TV time. The veterans, on the other hand, eyed her with suspicion, knowing that her renewed push meant someone else's dedicated hard work was about to be overlooked. It created a fascinating paranoid tension that bled through the screen. Every match following her return felt like it had higher stakes because everyone was suddenly auditioning to prove they could survive in the new, harsher landscape she had created just by showing up. The ecosystem was disrupted, forcing everyone to evolve quickly or risk total extinction. Beyond the immediate feuds, there is the crushing weight of her own legacy that she now has to carry. Returning more dangerous than ever is a massive promise to make to an audience that remembers your greatest hits fondly. The pressure on her is now immense. If she loses even a step, if she shows even a flicker of her old vulnerability, the new persona could crumble into parody. The media cycle immediately spun into overdrive, analyzing her every micro-expression, comparing her current physical shape to her prime years. Was this a desperate attempt to stay relevant or a genuine evolution? She has to battle not just the current roster, but the idealized memory of her former self that fans hold in their hearts. It's a lonely, difficult battle. To destroy who you were in order to become who you need to be requires a sacrifice that few understand. We saw glimpses of this internal conflict, a fleeting hesitation before delivering a particularly brutal chair shot, a moment of contemplation looking at the championship she used to hold. These small, humanizing moments made the ruthless exterior even more compelling, suggesting a deep internal war that she is desperate to keep hidden from the cameras. As the initial shock fades, and we settle into this new reality, we have to ask ourselves, why this? Why now? Perhaps this nightmare version of her isn't truly evil, but a necessary adaptation to the modern era of wrestling. The business has become faster, harder, and less forgiving. Maybe she realized that kindness was a liability, and that to survive in this current generation she had to become the monster they all feared. It's a reflection of the world itself. Sometimes you have to harden your heart just to protect what little you have left. Her ruthlessness might just be an extreme form of self-defense. We, the audience, are drawn to it because we understand that feeling of wanting to stop playing nice and just take what we deserve. She is acting out our collective shadow self, doing the things we wish we could do when we feel overlooked or underappreciated. She is not just a wrestling villain. She is a cathartic vessel for everyone who has ever felt like they needed to burn it all down to start over again. In the end, her shocking return serves as a powerful reminder of the beautiful, endless cycle of professional wrestling. Heroes become villains to stay alive, and eventually, if they stay long enough, they become legends regardless of their alignment. The fans screaming in fear at her dangerous new attitude are the same ones who will eventually cheer for her redemption years down the line. We need these moments of chaos to appreciate the order. We need the nightmares to make the dreams feel worth fighting for. She hasn't just returned to SmackDown. She has returned to her rightful place as the architect of our emotional investment. Whether we love this new version of her or despise it, we cannot look away. And in the world of cinematic storytelling that is professional wrestling, that is the only victory that truly matters. The nightmare has begun, and we are all gratefully, eagerly dreaming along with her.